Hey, welcome to Heroes 8. I'm Paul.
and I'm Patrick, because he's cool.
Hey, welcome to Heroes 8. I'm Paul.
And I'm Patrick.
And we're going to be doing the review of Green Book.
Yeah.
So that should be good.
Which, if you've been watching any of our channel up until now, and if you'd got to see some of the videos that we didn't release due to technical issues and other such, you would know that we've spoken about Green Book for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Because that's how long ago we saw the trailer. It was a bit of a long delayed release here in Ireland. We were both... I think the safe way of putting this is we both crapped ourselves when we saw the trailer separately, then mentioned it in front of each other and was like, you saw it too? That trailer looks amazing. I cannot wait to see that movie. So expectations were,
Yeah, it was a pretty high movie because,
Yeah.
or like, we were looking forward to it quite a
Yeah.
bit, and then it didn't show up for quite a while.
Yeah.
So we now got to see it.
Yeah, and it before we got to see it, it was already Oscar nominated. So it had its Oscar nomination before it was even released here. Which
Yeah.
is a little bit of a marketing ploy there, movie people. I know what you're doing. But we would have seen it anyway. I think
Yeah.
if it had only been released in one screen in Ireland, had no Oscar nomination and no buzz, we would have gone to see it because that
Yeah.
trailer did make me want to see it really bad.
It really did. So we're going to get into our usual kind of format of reviewing the films, which our first one will be the first thoughts, which I kind of slightly gave
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that was me subtly kind of leading into those first thoughts. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm all about that smooth.
Yeah, and I'm a very blunt hammer when it comes to like segues.
No,
It's
I
like-
think you're fantastic.
So what's the smoothest way we could do this?
So-
We just names it.
Yeah. So our first thoughts are we were excited, and actually no. To be fair, first thoughts after seeing the movie.
First thoughts after the scene. The movie?
As in now that I've seen the movie.
Mhm.
So my first thoughts on Green Book, literally, as I came out of the cinema, I had that moment of I'm really glad I wasn't disappointed. Like there was,
Yeah.
I had a fear that I was going in with too high an expectation, and I came out going, no, it was really good.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was very very happy with it. Actually, you saw it a few days after me. So I had to keep stum. I had to say nothing and not
Yeah.
ruin it. So there was a small part of me going, don't smile when he mentions it. Don't frown when he mentions it. And then you texted me the minute you got out and gave it the kind of the thumbs up. I was like,
Yeah.
cool. I'm still friends with Paul. That's good.
Yeah, because when I asked you what it was like, I think your wife was just like,
Oh yeah, she let the cat out of the bag because she
was
didn't
like-
know you hadn't
she
seen it
was
yet.
like, oh yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it was just like,
yeah.
really enjoyed it. Yeah. So
I'm standing there with morose face of, can't read me.
So yeah, we have a slight rule where when we talk about movies, we're just like, yeah, go watch it. We're very subtle about how we talk about it before the other one has seen it.
We don't want to influence each other. So what was your initial thoughts on Green Book?
So my initial thoughts when I watched the trailer was I'm really interested in the relationship between which is Viggo Mortensen and
Mahershala Ali.
yeah. So that was a really kind of interesting one. When I came out of the cinema, I was also not disappointed about the whole thing, and also realized that my preconceived notions about the film were shattered.
Oh, okay.
So I think that was also a good, decent.
Oh yeah, I kind of get what you're saying actually. Yeah, because I hadn't really considered that I did have preconceived notions that then hadn't come through or to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't bother me because there was still just so much good there.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
So yeah, no. As I said, it was just an interesting point when I was just like,
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a little bit different in certain ways, but it wasn't. It was, but in a completely different direction, kind of thing. So
Yeah. So and about that, I guess that's some of that's around the plot. So
yeah,
and as far as what this film is based on, it's set in a time that we all know about. It's not a time that fortunately we lived through, but it's a time when segregation and racial tension in America was significantly raised. It was coming towards, how should I put this? It was in a period of equality starting to happen, but not universally or to the level that it needed to be or is now.
yeah.
So it was a key time in American history, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, like you could see the difference between the North and the South in this film a lot. As in,
Yeah.
it was a lot more kind of like not so easygoing and stuff like that in the north, but then as you further get south and stuff like that, it gets worse and worse and worse. Which actually I appreciated because if we're going to go to the plot part,
Yeah.
which I appreciated was when they said where they were in the south,
Yeah.
which gave me an indication of the further and further indoctrination of racism within family groups and
Yeah.
people and stuff like that, which was nice.
The lack of progress.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I guess we should, and also just to throw it out there, this is a spoiler-filled review. I don't think it's a film you can necessarily spoil in a traditional sense, that you'll still enjoy watching it even if we tell you something you've already seen or
Yeah.
you haven't seen yet. And I think to go back to the title of it, the title of the film, Green Book, is based on the idea of a book it was called The Green Book. It was written by a guy called Green, I believe is actually where it got its name. And it was the guide for black people traveling in America, not particularly, but for places where they would be welcome and accepted and safe. So it was a guide of stay here or not there sort of thing, to the best of my understanding.
That's right. But it was for the southern states.
Yeah, see, I don't know how far it reached. That's why I didn't want to commit to that, because I haven't got a full understanding whether or not there were versions for other parts of the country, which there could have been.
I think it was because it was I think it's state by state kind of thing, but I think it was more for the southern states kind of thing. But it shows it has the names of hotels and stuff like that black people can stay in, places where they can eat, how they should behave.
My skin crawls when we're even using the term "can." It's whoa, and that's one of the things that the plot does help you experience in a not gratifying way, which it should not be. Is that it's this is where you can stay. Yeah, it's such a horrible phrase to say out loud as a human.
Well, I'd never with the plot kind of thing. I'd never heard of the Green Book before this, and the way that it was first kind of introduced was which it spoilers, the two executives, not really a spoiler, but the two music executives who were saying, there's going to be times when you're going to stay in the same hotel, and there's going to be times when you have to stay in the other hotels, and stuff like that. And I was just oh yeah, okay, segregation kind of thing. And then they hand them the book, and I was like, what the hell is this thing? And then it was the Green Book, and I was like, I get it now. Okay, I should have looked it up beforehand.
Well, we haven't given you the plot synopsis, but I think most people should know by now that it's based on the story of a I was going to say Wise Guys. It's based on an Italian New Jersey, or not New Jersey, Long Island, I think, a New Yorker who was a bit of a bouncer in a famous club, who takes a job as a driver for a African-American musician who's a virtuoso, a pianist, an amazing pianist, who is going to embark on a tour of the southern states of America, the southwestern or southeastern states. So we're talking Alabama, Georgia, North and South Carolina, I think.
Connecticut, well, Kentucky,
maybe. Yeah, they probably can back up around that way. There's no faulting the film for fessing up and dealing with its subject, which is one of the things that I've seen a lot of people criticize it for. I didn't feel that it was softball. A lot of people are saying that it's a bit softball, it's a bit this, it's a very sanitized telling of that. I didn't feel that, because I think what it tried to do was focus on the people. And that's maybe part of this plot, is not just that it was that journey, it was the journey for those two people and how they affected each other, which I know sounds very classic, how people affected each other, but it's a really enjoyable watch because of that.
Yeah, the plot is a fairly kind of simple mechanism in which we get to see the relationship between the characters and everything like that, like normal kind of ones. It's not very complex, and it does have some stereotypical kind of buddy movies that are in there. Yeah. But the way that they do it in this one was also really, really good.
Yeah, I think so.
It I didn't really feel like it's softball anything. It was more the fact is that it was just, as I said, slightly stereotypical with a buddy kind of thing, but it was more character driven kind of storylines, and the moments in which you get kind of a punch to the face with the kind of racism and segregation and bigotry that was happening on down in those states are very good, because he was walking in certain circles.
Yes.
So like it does make sense the fact that he would not be facing as much.
Yeah, and to kind of to get you up to speed on that, because he was going on a tour of the South, he was meeting with affluent people who are having him play as an incredible pianist for them. He wasn't doing a dive bar blues tour. He was playing for the well-to-do white, the traditional plantation owner end of the South. So
Yeah.
I think that plays heavily in the fabric of the film.
So like, I guess we go down to characters. 'Cause
Yeah.
Since we've been talking about the characters so much, and it's a character-driven story.
And I think you cannot. Everybody's going to focus on Marshall Ali's character, the pianist. But I actually think Viggo Mortensen, not only, never mind his acting, the character that he got to play, Tony Lip.
Tony the Lip or Tony.
It's not that he makes a point of saying it's not Tony the Lip. It's Tony Lip. It's because I'm a good talker. I can bullshit anybody. But he's Tony Vallelonga. These are real life people. These are people who exist, and part of the cast is real life people and relations of the original Vallelonga family. That character has obviously his own inner demons when it comes to racism. They portray that. He has his own issues around economic issues around trying to keep his family, fed and surviving. But they also play him with, or write him with, a certain amount of integrity, which leads you to think, okay, this is a person who is good at their core, and maybe it's society that has made them bad in the ways that they're bad. So his racism is never like, this guy was just a bigot, then he met a black guy and became better. It's more a case of he's a little bit misguided, possibly because of the society that surrounded him a little bit.
Yeah, like it's interesting the way that they kind of bring that about, because like after a point, I don't really recognize that much racism.
No, exactly.
As in like, so it's just the glasses scene.
Yeah,
That's the only kind of in your face moment that I was just like, because like the other moments is not. I think it's more ignorance in that kind of like setting, rather than his which could actual like hatred or anything.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that.
And it's the fact that they start off very early on showing this hint or this suggestion of bigotry or racism, which is then really made clear to be more of a lack of knowledge, a little bit of ignorance, a little bit of society. And they show integrity when it comes to what jobs he will take and what jobs he won't take. Shows his ingenuity by some of the scenes of how he creates and hustles through life. There's a hot dog eating contest scene it's quite funny, and the hat scene, he manages to steal and return someone's hat, so they think he's great. But the fact they didn't play him off as one note, I think that's why when people say, oh, it's a bit softball, it's not your typical bigot finally is faced with what bigots are like and doesn't want to be one anymore. It's he never really was, and then gets to see the downside of even what he wouldn't have been. I don't have hate in my heart sort of thing. I think he would have said that, but I think he realized, oh my god, but still some of my actions are really, really not good, and that's ignorance and just societal hangover.
Yeah, like I think the moments that he's talking about, like like what's in the trailer, the fried chicken thing, where he says your people likes the fried chicken kind of thing. That's like, it's a stereotype that was brought around a lot of people. So that's more ignorance, because he's not saying it as in a hateful kind of way or anything like that. And there's moments like that go on throughout the film that are, it's more ignorance and misinformation that like that he not slowly grows out of, but realizes,
starts to recognize. I think he starts to recognize his own ignorance, and I think that's nicely played with the education between the two people.
Because actually, he was the most surprising character for my preconception notions, because he constantly, over and over again, surprised me within the way that he not dealt with things, but the way that his actions. Yeah, he was very much an action speaks louder than words person.
Yeah. Very much.
Even though he was Tony Lip, the guy who's very good at bullshitting.
Yeah, there was
kind of
the
thing.
bullshit stopped pretty quickly when action needed to be taken.
Yeah, like that was the thing. Is like I really liked Viggo Mortensen's character, because like every time he surprised me more and more. The time that he's walking down to his friends in the bar.
Yes. Yeah.
and he just goes, "I've been working in clubs." That was a beautiful moment. I was just like, "Holy crap!"
And that's actually something, because we're probably going to have to move on to the other main character just to kind of give the other half of the duo the equal time. Realistically, they wouldn't have worked without each other from a character point of view. Obviously, the story's based around their interaction, but the nuance on both their sides, the fact that, okay, Tony's not just a bigot. We've discussed that, but the other side is that Dr. Shirley,
Don Shirley.
Don Shirley is he's not a one note character either. He's not just a cause it's portrayed very early on, and you're made feel like that from the trailer. This is a well-to-do, affluent African American who is about to get the shock of their lives that, you know, this is what it's really like for black people. There's a little bit of that kind of suggested.
Mm-hmm.
That goes away very, very quickly, because, again, I think that character is portrayed very early on as, I'm not going to be one note. And as it all plays out, they aren't one note.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, it's all you ask for from a character, really.
Yeah, and that's the interesting kind of duo type thing, because you've got a character who's essentially misinformed and using stereotypes, and then you've got a character who is none of those.
Yeah.
Like, there's no note of any of that stuff, and even so much that he's somewhat ignorant in his which is what he says is his own culture and stuff like that,
yeah.
which is an interesting development as well, because that also slightly surprised me as well. Was the fact is that he is so far removed from, you know, which goes, I guess,
the reality of what people were facing in his society, and also the cultural, what would have been considered cultural norms for his society. So being a musician but disconnected from what was black music at the time, popular black music.
Yeah, and then also, just he's like, you know, just the stereotypic things of liking food, liking fried chicken and stuff like that. That was a very interesting thing, which is his going, like, you know, their argument about liking fried chicken was a very fun argument, because Tony just turns around and goes, I'm not really going to get pissed off if someone says that all Italians like meatballs and spaghetti.
Yeah, it's like I like meatballs.
Yeah, so he's an interesting character, because both of them, I feel like Tony grows less.
Yeah.
Than
Dr. Shirley, Don Shirley. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would agree with that. But again, importantly, the characters aren't one note at any point, and it's great that their changes in tone, and even the subtle changes, are always in unison. There's always an ebb and flow between them. There's never any just smashing together for the sake of it, just for effect. There's a great melody to this movie, the way it was made. It has a wonderful flow.
Now it does hit the some of the stereotypical kind of like buddy moments, but but as I said, because the characters are so well developed, so well well rounded.
Yeah,
like you can see the stereotype moments there, but you're just like, I don't care.
Yeah, but I was about to say, but do you care? Because it's the joy, and it's the joy of storytelling, that you can use things that are familiar to people, and there are the buddy moments. And they're heartening, and they're part of the mechanism that the filmmaker uses to tell the story and keep you connected, while then throwing in extra things.
Yeah, very much so. Because like I've heard online and read online that you know, people are saying that, you know, oh, it's a little bit atypical, and you're just like, I don't think you're reading. I think you're reading into the wrong tones of, if we're using the melody. I think you're reading into the wrong tones of the film. Yeah. If you're thinking, oh, this is the moment where they, you know, they butt heads a little bit because this is the start of the movie and they're trying to figure each other out, kind of thing, and you're just like, yeah, but watch the characters. Like, these are the characters that you're going to be with for, like, you know, like 120 minutes. So you might as well, you know, sit there and watch the moments and the, you know.
Well, that's the thing. Listen to the song. I think in a lot of ways, if we're going to continue that metaphor, I think people may well watch this film seeing long hair and denim and expect, you know, Def Leppard. But just let them play, and it turns out, no, it's actually a different genre of music. On the face of it, it looks like one thing, but I think in reality, if you let yourself get into it, it's something else.
Now, some of the other characters around it are the wife.
Oh, yeah.
Which she's a very good sweetheart moment throughout the film. But as I said, she's just very much, a lot of them are all secondary characters, so it's not very. Then the two other musicians, they're interesting kind of characters. They're not well rounded out or anything like that, but that's because they're secondary characters again. And then there's the orchestra of people that they meet along the way and stuff like that. But there's no moment that I've picked out that I've gone, that's on a good person or a good character or anything like that.
No, that's true. Well rounded. So I think from that point of view, there's no point in going through the rogues gallery, because the negative characters, we can talk about scenes that are challenging and heartbreaking all day. There's obviously the one that I think most people come away. There's two big scenes that people will come away going, oh my god, and it's where Dr. Don Shirley plays at a party and then asks to use the restroom, and he's directed to go outside and use the outhouse.
Yeah.
And there's also, for my money, one of the best scenes in the entire film, which is the restaurant scene, where he's not allowed and sit and eat with the rest of his band, even though he's the band leader, and they've brought him there. He's the marquee name.
Yeah.
So like those, you can talk about all those bad people all night.
Oh yeah. No, you definitely could.
But the film does such a good job with its main characters, and I think. Just to really briefly dip back, I think Tony's wife is such a good she's a good external character to the trip, because the other two band members are in their part of the trip, they're part of the experience, but that shooting back to home where they're able to go back and look at life where she's receiving letters, played brilliantly by the lady from Freaks and Geeks, Lisa Cardinelli. I think she's a real heart in the film too, because she made me smile, and any time that I really welled up a little bit, it was usually in proximity to something to do with that character.
Like, yeah, she was the heart, because the fact is, we didn't get to see you could see with certain elements of Dr. Don Shirley's character, the hurt and separation of his character, but Tony is such a simple, straightforward man that the letters are his eternalization the externalization of his internal monologue, which is very good, because it's like, for a lot of them, it's very simple, what he eats, what he's currently doing, and all that kind of stuff. But as the relationship between him and Don Shirley kind of evolve and grows and stuff, his letters grow and evolve quite a bit, and it feels like, it feels like the movie maker, the directors and screenwriters obviously did it on purpose, but it's a nice tool to use, which shows their evolution of a relationship. Yeah. So you like, at the start, it's a very, very Tony letter. Yes. And as you go further and further, it's got elements of Don Shirley's writing and helpings, and then at the end,
it's the evolved Tony up to a certain extent. Yeah, and again, it's great filmmaking. It's great storytelling, because this is essentially, in some ways, it's a road trip buddy movie with some very serious overtones and undertones. But having that home base, that shooting back to the family, I think it adds such lovely, rich depth to the film, and gives it an excuse to breathe. Or not an excuse, but an ability to breathe at the right times, and keeps that pace from becoming too monotonous or too frantic or too slow. I think it's a great thing for setting up cadence in the film.
So I think, because we talked about characters and stuff like that, we're probably going to move on to acting, which I think we could probably do quite short, because
who's bad? Let's find somebody who's not good in it, because I think acting, they're good.
I can't think of anyone really.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no. Like, the acting is phenomenal, and as you can tell from us talking about the characters and everything, you forget or move away from the character or from the actors that are there, and see the characters as they should be. Yeah. Which is a nice feeling to a movie, when you can ignore essentially two big names and see the characters rather, kind of thing.
Yes, actually, good point, because we're not talking about no name, no brand actors. These are two of the big powerhouses of our generation, and they both really do knock it out of the park. As you kind of say, that they sink into the roles. You're not watching Viggo Mortensen. You're not watching Mahershala Ali. You're watching Tony and Doc Shirley
Yeah.
driving around. It's the acting is I would say for me spot on.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And then as I said before in other videos, there's crescendos within moments throughout the film as
It's
well,
real.
which is really good because I think it builds up, and then there's a nice moment, and then but every time it moves to the crescendos of scenes and stuff like that, it gets further and further up until eventually we get to that restaurant scene, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, and we should have probably agreed this before we started talking, that a film with a musician at its center, it actually is the perfect metaphor for the movie, because it has a wonderful tempo, as I mentioned, and being able to shoot back to the New York, that's tempo is the way I would probably cover that. Melody we've already talked about, the highs and lows, and that the crescendo, like it really is. It's enjoyable because of that, because it has those musical qualities, because it is so well put together, so well executed, so well acted.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about it from because there's obviously it's set in a time, from a visuals point of view?
The visuals, like, I can't. They're beautiful. They're on par. They're on, like, I don't, what do you call it? They're on spot. Or
they're perfect. They hit the mark.
Like they're completely
on point. That's what we were both trying to think of. Yeah.
So they're completely on point. The whole like clothing. Every single like set or piece that they're at and stuff like that is all great. The cars were fantastic.
Yeah,
you gotta like the cars.
Yeah, well, I really, and it's we haven't talked about this off camera, and you might be like, why didn't you mention this before? I really connected with Green Book on a whole other level that's maybe a little bit more personal for me, and that's because my folks were in America at that time. That's exactly when my folks were living in that part of the world.
Okay.
And like my uncle would have lived not too far away from where those guys were supposed to be. So I grew up in a household with pictures of cars like that, and going to visit an uncle who was still living in Long Island actually. I recognized characters. I recognized people from that.
Oh,
I had heard stories of the Copa. Like I recognized for good and for bad, I will be honest. I recognize some of the attitudes that maybe lived on a little too long, because not everybody was enlightened even by the time the 70s and 80s kind of...
Still enlightened now.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say. So when it came to how it looked and felt, it was so on point and so good that I was able to reminisce my way right into it, because I was surrounded by pictures literally of that cars, those streets, that whole feeling and vibe. So they nailed it on a few levels for me.
That's good.
Even just from not just the personality, but down to the clothing. Yeah, like they had pictures to work off. You can tell they worked off pictures.
Definitely. It's just everything. Like the diners, the places that they ate, the food that they constantly eat. Like they constantly eat like fast food and stuff like that. And you're just like, they're gone for 2 months, and you're just like, how can you live off a diet of that,
Well, yeah, Tony liked eating Kentucky Fried Chicken in Kentucky.
He liked eating. That was a great scene.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
He's like, is it fresh down here?
Yeah, we're all so high and mighty going, oh God, of course it's KFC. But there was a time in all our lives in our little Irish ways when we would have been running around. I remember the first time I saw McDonald's in Ireland, folks. I was like, wow, I can get a Big Mac in there. I've seen those on TV and in America. Yeah, so I can't judge Tony. Tony. I was that kid.
No, I just more of say it's just everything, the setting, everything. It felt like a period piece as well.
Yeah. So visuals again knocked it out of the park. So like we're giving it A's across the board here.
Yeah. Soundtrack.
Incredibly enjoyable. It used music so well when it got the chances, but it didn't rely on it, and I was really glad of that, because a musician was at the core of the film. It didn't rely on music to carry it along. Yeah,
like that's the thing is that I was going to say, because the soundtrack is very good, but it's a lot of classical kind of music and stuff like that. So, which goes, but it's moments, because he did choose what he played at the start of his concerts, and you could feel that there's certain choices that he made was reflection of how he felt at that time.
They were emotional choices.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
emotional
that-
reflections.
So that was good, which is, and then of course at the ending,
Yeah.
that's a perfect kind of like song
Yeah.
to use as well.
And the radio in the car, accompanying the journey. There was nothing that hit you over the head with the musical choices, which I really liked. There was no real finger in your eye going, have you noticed? It was
Yeah.
all very complimentary and very appropriate. A dumb way of putting it, but I can't think of the word right now. It was very, it enhanced the movie rather than defined the movie.
It really gave it more of a setting in that time period as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great.
No, beautiful.
So
So did you like it, Paul?
yeah,
Final
yeah,
thoughts?
yeah,
You liked it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say I hated it. I hated it. No, it's awesome. No, I hated it. No, it's awesome. I really did. I enjoyed it. I think everybody should go out and see it. If you haven't, get around to seeing it. It's not one of these ones you want to see 5 years from now and be like, oh crap, I should have seen that first time around.
Yeah.
It's good.
And like, I don't think anything that we've said will in any way ruin your, like, any scenes that
Not
we
at
talked
all.
about. Not at all. Like,
Not at all.
I don't think so. So yeah, 2 thumbs up from Heroes Out, I
Yeah.
guess.
So on that note, I think you should like and subscribe and share with all your friends. I've been Patrick,
And I've been Paul.
and we've been Hear Us Out. He avoided doing
Yeah.
synchronized Hear Us Out.
It's
Good-
weird.
Good
It's
stuff.
weird. It's really weird.
It's too weird.
It's really weird.
Bye.
See you later. Yeah. So, if you were in Green Book, would you prefer to be at home getting a letter from Tony,
Oh.
or would you prefer to be in the car with Tony?
I think I'd prefer the journey of self-realization and discovery.
I think I would like to be a time traveler.